All right, Tom Pelissero. So now that leaves us with what? A big void, huh? Now,
Are you
so
asking me, Rich, what I'm going to fill the insiders with every weeknight at 7 p.m. on NFL Network for the
well,
foreseeable future?
no, because I know it's going to be filled with guys who are waiting for a contract extension and
Right.
are toying with the idea of not being there when they have to be to make a point. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson leads that list. It appears Terry McLaurin may be on that list. You know, this man's lion from Penn State over there, TJ Jefferson's Micah Parsons, says, I'm showing. It's really on Jerry. I want to win. He seems like to be a happy go lucky hold inner, So did I kind of nail it or what? Did I miss anything, Tom?
That is certainly a big part of the list. It's not just whether guys will show up, but to your point, are you guys actually going to participate in practice? And every year we have a dozen or so players who don't end up doing that. It is Trey Hendrickson. At this point, I'm not anticipating that anything gets done there prior to minicamp. Micah Parsons has already said himself that he's going to show up regardless. Is he actually going to do anything on the field? I don't know, but he and his agent are not big on giving up money for no reason. So I anticipate Mike is at least going to be in the building here. You've got other big deals potentially getting done. Guys like Aiden Hutchinson. I would fully anticipate Aiden Hutchinson is there with the Lions next week. You got some quarterback deals that potentially could get done here. We know Eric DeCosta said recently they've had initial conversations with Lamar Jackson. That quarterback market has taken off so much. Lamar is barely even in the top 10 at this point, depending how you slice the numbers in terms of average per year. He's got 3 years left on his contract. We know that Lamar historically has never been a rush to do anything, but he's due $43.5 million this year. If there's an opportunity to bump him up to where those top quarterbacks are while also extending that contract from the Ravens' perspective, there might be a win-win that can be found in there. And then probably the biggest one, and one that was directly impacted, Rich, by the Aaron Rodgers news, is what happens here with Kirk Cousins. And is the answer, after all the speculation, all the reports, all the logic you can apply to the situation, is the answer really going to be nothing happens and he is a $27.5 million backup in 2025? At this point, there's not a clear place for Kirk Cousins to go. The Falcons have made abundantly clear that they're not releasing him. If they were going to do that, they would have done that back in March. It didn't happen. He now not only has the 27.5 fully guaranteed this year, he's got another 10 million guaranteed in 2026, albeit subject to offsets. But so any team even trading for him is taking on $37.5 million for a player who is battling a lot. Kirk Cousins was pretty banged up last season, but ultimately got benched in favor of Michael Penix Jr. That is a storyline, Rich, that probably now is not going to be resolved, I wouldn't think, prior to training camp. But the moment that somebody hits their thumb on a helmet, the moment that somebody pulls up lame with a hamstring, the moment anything happens to any quarterback, the first question is going to be, is this the team that trades for Kirk Cousins? And the caution that I would lend to that is the deeper into it that we get, the further into training camp and the preseason, the more that Kirk Cousins, a guy who is due this money regardless of whether he's playing or not, and has family in Atlanta and is raising his kids in Atlanta, might be pretty reluctant to go, all right, this guy got hurt in the second preseason game. I'm going to pack up and move to City X, move my family, and go in and try to learn a playbook and learn my teammates quickly here. I don't know that he's going to do that, and he's got a no trade clause. So, again, we'll be talking about Kirk Cousins a lot once injuries inevitably hit that position. But we really now are into territory with Aaron Rodgers agreeing with the Steelers, where Kirk Cousins might be the Falcons' backup unless and until an opportunity arises through injury or otherwise for him to actually step in the lineup and play football for the Falcons again.
See, and here's okay. So much that you just said about Cousins. I mean, let's have the real conversation here too, Tom. Number one, forget the economics of it. They're not releasing him because if they just released him, right? Just to say, we're going to do right by we'll go into the season without you, even though we're already budgeted for it. Because if they release him, the spot that might take him on the spot is New Orleans, and that very, very, very warm place has got to freeze over. I'm just sitting, right now thinking about that. Maybe Minnesota would take a shot, just to have him back there. With JJ getting the gig, although that might create
hard
some
dynamic.
Yeah, it's a hard dynamic.
Possible. Sure.
But from what you just said there, that Cousins might not be willing to go someplace if things, remain status quo too deep. Sounds like a warning shot from his camp to tell the Falcons, be careful, man, because if you want this money off the books, if you've been, playing chicken with us this entire time, we might roost,
Well, think about it this way. If we're just talking logically here, if you're Kirk Cousins, his first year in Minnesota, you remember, was bumpy. The whole season. They missed the playoffs coming off an NFC Championship appearance. It took time. He obviously got better thereafter. They went to the playoffs. They had a playoff win. You go to his first year in Atlanta. Clearly, a really bumpy ride. There's something to be said for any quarterback. I mean, even Aaron Rodgers stepping into Pittsburgh here. There's growing pains that you're going to have to go through. And as much as Aaron Rodgers may not believe there's any value in the spring, if you're Kirk Cousins and being told, all right, let's say a team that he does, and I don't want to say a specific team and jinx some fan base here, but let's say some team that runs a completely different offense loses their quarterback and go, all right, we're going to bring in Kirk Cousins now. Does Kirk actually want to go?
Right.
If this is maybe, late July is even different than end of August, September, October, does he want to go in and do that? That would be an honest conversation. I haven't talked to Kirk about it. I don't know that he would necessarily veto trades at a certain point.
Can he do that? Let me just jump in. He has the right to veto a trade, Tom?
He has a no trade clause.
Okay,
so
wow.
He's
got some cards.
This. If the Falcons were going to work with Kirk Cousins to facilitate a trade, they would have done this in February and March. So it's not as if a spot opens up and suddenly Kirk just is going to say, all right, Falcons are going to hold him hostage. Like, when the Eagles got a first-round pick for Sam Bradford because Teddy Bridgewater blew out his knee, that was a function of Howie Roseman and Rick Spielman, who knew each other well, being like, all right, realistically, you don't have a quarterback. I'm going to get this, and so we got to get this thing done quickly. And they moved very quickly, and they acquired Sam Bradford on cutdown day. I mean, those things can happen, but when you have a no-trade clause, it does raise the specter of Kirk Cousins saying, you know what? I don't really want to move my family to City X in October and then just hope I can microwave the rhythm and timing and tempo that it takes to succeed in an NFL passing offense. Again, I'm not saying he wouldn't do it. I'm just saying that is certainly realistic and logical from Kirk Cousins' perspective. If I'm going to make the same exact money to be in Atlanta, at least a system I know, maybe something happens to Michael Penix and I get to play here versus going into a place you don't know the players, you don't know the coaches, you don't know the system, and try to pick it up midstream without even an off season. Kirk Cousins' own experience, Rich, would tell you that that might not be an instantaneous yes.
Okay. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.